What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Just want to give a quick shout out before I begin this video. Shout out to the brother MR Jr. 1998 for the $20 donation via the Cash App. He says, for Too Raw Nation, salute to you for showing love to the channel, longtime subscriber and friend to this channel. I just looked at Dreamers Pro live stream, and he was talking about, he said he had saw my video talking about this situation with Stephen A. Smith. Right now, I got the information from 78 Sports TV, and then I looked and I was appalled at Stephen A. Smith talking about this situation with Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo used to be on CNN. I believe he was let go from CNN. I believe it had something to do with journalistic integrity involving him and his brother legal issues. I forget, although I think that really was just a way for them to get rid of Cuomo because of the stench of his brother, Andrew, who just lost in the New York Democratic runoff, which is essentially, since Democrats run New York City, the whole ball game for the mayoral race. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Stephen A. Smith was on the program, and they were talking about the Epstein situation, Epstein files. Jeffrey Epstein, a financier. Nobody really knows exactly why he was a billionaire. I think it was for primarily illicit gains. If you do your research on this situation, but he was primarily known for being a provider of debauchery in the worst way to the richest and most powerful people on this planet. All right, over the past 3 decades minimum. Okay, this is a guy that started off as a school teacher. Somehow he went from being a school teacher to, apparently, if you do some research, a CIA asset, a Mossad asset, and suddenly he becomes a millionaire, multimillionaire, then billionaire with no business formal training, okay? But anyway, millions of Americans voted for Donald Trump for a multitude of reasons. And I never believed that all 77 million people that voted for Donald Trump are racist. No, I don't think that. I think a good percentage of them are, but a lot of people voted for him for their own personal reasons. A lot of them bought into his bullshit. And one of the things was he was going to drain the swamp. He was going to clean up Washington from all the filth that has emanated from that city for decades, right? The decadence and all of the debauchery and all of the excesses, right? And at first he was getting some high marks, but he kept talking about, when he was running last year, about declassifying a lot of things, including the Epstein list. So the Epstein list exists, despite what you might be hearing from some of these naysayers who are trying to cover up their asses and the asses of their bosses and all these people who need to be tumbled down and fall. Stephen A. Smith, knowing all of this, right, but being the grifter that he is, grift like hell for Trump and his supporters, even though he pretends to be an independent.
If you're a Republican, if you're the GOP, I mean, the big, beautiful bill was just passed. Even though the deficit is going to escalate from 3.3 trillion over 5 trillion, assuming you believe the Congressional Budget Office and all of this other stuff. I mean, with all of these things that's going on, with the 2017 tax cuts reserved, with so much stuff that's going on that the left didn't want to happen, that you on the right said you wanted to happen, with the borders being closed, supposedly that being handled, with migrants being escorted out of this country in droves, according to you, and what you wanted, you're in an uproar off the Epstein list. That's all you've got. It's really, really surprising that this matters. Of course, I think there's a list, but I don't know. I suspect, but I have no knowledge, nor do I care. It's Friday night. I'm getting ready to go out and enjoy myself. I'm getting ready to have a nice weekend. I can give a damn about the client list, the Epstein client list. It has no effect on me whatsoever. I have a life. I don't understand for the life of me why this matters so much to these. I'm talking about people losing it. They're crying on camera. They're talking about resignations. They're pissed off about everything. I'm like, really? With all the stuff going on in this country, with all the power that you possess because of the cachet and the influence you have because of your connection to this administration, that's why you upset at Trump. I didn't blame Trump one bit for looking at them and saying, really? That really matters to you? That's really that important? Now, maybe he had a different reason for saying it, trying to be evasive or whatever. I don't know. But I do know this. In the grand scheme of things, it ain't going to affect the lives of over 2 to 300 million Americans. No. I think we'll be just fine without knowing whether or not there was really a client list. I think we'll be okay. It's unbelievable that this is a big deal to me. It really is.
I agree with Dreamers Pro. I was pissed off at Stephen A. Smith for saying this dumb shit. But it's not enough to be pissed off. There needs to be repercussions. Okay? I'm tired of certain people only getting repercussions for certain things that they have done. Okay? But others getting, oh, well, that's just them. That's just how it is. He's a grifter. He says these things. Right? Look. Stephen A. Smith needs to be fired from ESPN for his comments. Or at the very least, suspended for his ignorant and insensitive comments. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, said recently that the list was on her desk and that she was going to release it any day now. That was a week and a half ago? I believe the FBI deputy director resigned. The deputy director resigned. The FBI director, Kash Patel, I believe his name is, he's thinking about resigning. See, these are some people who really, truly want to go to Washington and clean it up, and they're seeing that this desecrated, disgusting system is still in place. And we got to stop looking at Washington from a red and blue perspective. It's not a right and a left issue. Washington as a whole is disgusting. It's on the left and it's on the right. See, I'm not a grifter. I don't cater to people. I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Biden. I don't care who you voted for. If you voted for Kamala, you're welcome to my channel. Although some of you didn't like my criticism of her. If you voted for Trump, you're welcome to my channel. But some of you don't like the fact that I've been criticizing him. I told you I wasn't a Trump supporter. Stephen A. Smith, because he grips, this is a guy that claims he was a Kamala Harris supporter. But if you notice, the minute that Trump crossed the 270 electoral college mark on that night in November, he's been catering to Trump more and more and more. He never criticizes him. If he does have anything, if he ever says any statement that remotely sounds like a criticism, he'll double back and critique the Democratic Party tenfold what he did for Trump and the GOP, because he knows who greases his hand. He knows that the people who support him generally are right-wing Republicans. Those are the people whose format and platforms he goes to. He's been grifting. If you really pay attention to Stephen A. Smith, he's been grifting on the right for quite some time. He's been a guest of Fox News quite a few times in the past. He just does it more since he now has the contractual freedom to do it. And this time, like my buddy Steven Dreamers Pro just said, he didn't read the room well. There are millions of Trump supporters who are pissed off at Trump right now. Now, you have many of them who voted for him because they thought that certain people were going to be deported. Turns out, if you believe the numbers, 60% of the people that have been deported don't have criminal records. They feel betrayed by Trump, right? You have farmers who voted for Trump thinking that they were going to still get free labor or cheap labor at the expense of these illegals, thousands and millions of illegals who have been expurgated from the United States. That cheap labor is gone, and it hasn't been replaced by who they thought he would be replaced, who will be replacing them. There are also some Trump supporters who voted for Trump because they don't like what was going on in their cities. People who don't belong here, at least in their eyes, don't belong here, coming here, and they thought that Trump would clean up the inner cities. But the thing is, many of the inner cities have still not been cleaned up, and they're pissed off about that. But at the very least, what people don't like, they understand politicians lie about little things, but don't lie to me about the things that matter to me the most. And that's what people are pissed off about. Because Trump used to be seen as an outsider. And at one point in time, maybe he was. But he's become a politician. And it also doesn't help when the opposition calls you a dictator and you're talking about deporting Rosie O'Donnell because you don't like her. That doesn't sound very democratic. And for Stephen Smith to talk about, well, what he's talking about, well, the Epstein list doesn't affect, in the big scheme of things, the 200, 300 million Americans live in this country. Well, technically, Watergate didn't either. If Richard Nixon and his administration and his underlings had gotten away with Watergate, well, in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't have really affected most of us. Same thing's true with the Teapot Dome scandal of the Harding administration. The same thing is true with Bill Clinton and his scandals. But at the heart of our government, we need accountability. We need a checks and balance system. We do have that, but we still need to have set in place in our country a system that is set in place to prevent corruptibility, to prevent these unconscionable actions that have in the past happened from ever happening again. And if our country went through the horror of Watergate, which pales in comparison, which was a constitutional crisis compared to what the Epstein list is all about. The Epstein list is the absolute worst. And that is the absolute most, I don't use the word absolute a lot, but the most powerful people with the most absolute power and wealth and pull and reach and influence, preying upon those who are the absolute weakest in our society, oftentimes brown, oftentimes black, and always poor, being made to do the worst. We talked about trafficking on a global scale. Do you ever notice the news doesn't talk about, for instance, the hundreds of children that disappear in this country, that disappear in the world? They just up and vanish. They don't talk about it. Why is the news media not talking about it? Why, when the president gives his State of the Union speech, does he never talk about it in real descript terms? Because you start to think and wonder to yourself, this is part of the system, a corrupt system that needs to be toppled. Yes, we're talking revolution. That's what needs to be done. People like Stephen A. Smith and all these other people you see on television, or the big wigs in social media now, since most people have moved to social media, they're not gatekeepers. Okay? They're underlings. They're the underlings that protect the gatekeepers, the hidden gatekeepers that you don't see. And most of the people who are the gatekeepers who you don't see are protecting others that are higher than them. And they're the ones that are oftentimes involved in what we're talking about. And they have to protect them by denying. So, what Stephen A. Smith basically just did is protect peas. Okay? He protect peas. I don't care what you say. If this guy can get on his show and start a panel about a football player who was caught busted with weed, but you don't care about the richest and most powerful people on earth violating the weakest, babies? Do you understand some of these charges that are out there? There's no way anybody can say that this is cool. It's not. He needs to be fired from ESPN. Period. End of story. He needs to be fired. At the very least, suspended for 2 weeks without pay. Minimum. There's no laughing matter. Some of these victims who are too scared to even go in front of a camera, even with distortion, because they fear what could happen to them or their families. What are we in now? What is this? Is this guy for real? Not to mention the young people and children who, I don't want to go into too much detail because this is YouTube. Let's just say sometimes people even are taken for body chemicals. Okay, I'll just put it like that. This is disgusting. You could argue that the Tulsa massacre didn't affect, in the grand scheme of things, the 106 million Americans, 105 million Americans alive at the time. What are you talking about? That was an atrocity that occurred with Epstein. And the list exists. And the violators are walking around. Many of them have died and won't never be brought to justice. But there are people walking around right now who are being admired, and they have, what I'm saying, people don't know what these people have done behind closed doors. This happened before with the Hollywood Madam. She was going to have a book out. She had a ledger which disappeared apparently when she was taken out. The whole corrupt system needs to come down. Period. And that was disgusting with Stephen A. Smith. He needs to be. He needs to go. He needs to be fired. Period. That's all I got to say about that. He needs to be fired.